Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Stephan Alheim, founder of TA4 Fitness, where he helps adults over 40 build strength, move better, and stay physically capable for the long run. So we'll uh, talk to him about his movement first approach for adults who spend their days at desks. We'll explore with him the hidden cost of sitting, why working out harder isn't fixing your body after 40, and how a movement assessment acts like blood work for your body so you can stay active, reduce pain, and keep performing as you age. Welcome to the show, Stefan.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate being here, AJ. Thank you.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Stefan. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about movement, we'll talk about fitness after 40, and much more. But before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, your story, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Sounds great. So I think if I were to kind of sum it up a little bit here, back when I was trying to figure out what to do, my uncle said to me, "Hey, I make a lot of money in computers. You should do that." So I jumped in computers, and then I was working there for 20 years. And then I would say I had a pretty easy life. I was lucky. I didn't have a lot of trauma in my life. But then in 2015, I got a call from my sister one day, and she said, "Hey, Dad's in the hospital. You need to come right now." And I was like, "Well, what could be wrong with my dad? He's healthy. His brother's 80. My dad was 70 at the time. His mom lived to 99. His sister was 90. Everyone was still alive." And so I was like, okay. So we go there, and eventually we found out that my dad had a massive heart attack and he passed that night. And it was the first real time that and it still kind of gets me up, triggers me a little bit, but it was the first time I really experienced trauma in my life like that. I had a really lucky life. And it just made me realize that life is short. And that was the first realization I came to. And so it got me really thinking about, if I only lived to the same age as my dad, 70, how many more years do I have left? How many more summers do I have left? And so it got me thinking that I need to try to do what I love. I've been working personal training on the side and just helping people for fun. And so I said, I need to make a career change. I need to do what I love the rest of my life. And I need to help people for this not to have happen to them. So I went on a journey of getting certifications and getting ready for a career change. And in 2018, TA4 Fitness was born. And I love what I do. And I haven't looked back since then. And I'm happy to help people move better and hopefully not have things like that happen to them. So I talk about a lot of things like blood work with my clients, because it's just so important that we take care of ourselves.
Absolutely, Stefan. What is it that you want people to say about health, about fitness, the way you want them to understand in any part of the world?
Yeah, I think that you need to look at health and fitness as not looking at body parts or as something vanity in the mirror, but training for life and the life that you want to live. And I think that that's the missing component, that a lot of people, when they think of fitness, they think of a mirror, they think of the scale, but they don't think of it as terms of what do I want my body to be able to do in life. And I think when you look at it from that perspective and you say to yourself, what do I want to still be doing at 80? What do I want to be doing now? What do I want to still be doing at 80? I think it changes the perspective. And then you look at things more from a movement perspective, because movement is the basis for everything, whether you love playing sports, golf, pickleball, hiking, it's a movement ability. And so as long as you start looking at the body as in movements and not body parts, and looking at it from a viewpoint of training for life and not looks, I think that just comes off way stronger and a way better outlook on health and fitness than just looking at things in the mirror, like I said, in the scale.
Absolutely, Stefan. So how should one understand their health? Should they, health in terms of, should they assess it when they are nearing 40, or should they keep assessing, every year after 20 or something like that? What is your basic, advice or understanding for people to understand?
Yeah, so I think that there's one missing component that I think a lot of people don't do. A lot of people get blood work, they get their annual physical, but a lot of people never have a movement screen done. And I screen clients that are in their 20s. I had a gentleman start with me recently in his 20s. I mostly help people over 40, but almost every year, I think people should have a movement screen done. And a movement screen is just going to assess your ability to move and move well. And that can go as deep as strength, mobility, balance, breath work, things like that, depending on how deep the movement screen is. But it's a snapshot in time, just like blood work is. And the nice thing about it, it also leaves, data, and it gives you markers. So if you get tested today and you test in a year from now and your scores are lower, you know that whatever you're doing in your daily life is actually making you less healthy per se than if you didn't have that data. And what I tell people too is every movement restriction, every mobility restriction you have causes compensations. And those compensations can add up over time to where a lot of people, we like to blame age. And although aging does have a point, it does have an effect on us for sure. It's also that we're not taking care of our bodies, and we're not looking at things like movement screens and fixing underlying causes that could be causing us pain in our shoulders and stuff like that. So I think that the movement screen is something that everyone should have, just like you have your blood work. And that just can help you just understand what's going on. It makes the invisible visible, is what I like to say.
Absolutely. Makes the invisible visible. First, let's understand about desk damage that you talk about. What is desk damage? And in terms of, is it only for people who spend a lot of time for desk, or is it for also people who are doing, other sort of work, not just desk work?
Yeah, so you're correct. It definitely is outside of that. And I recently even spoke to a truck driver, so very similar seated position. But yeah, so it's basically, I believe there was a fact out there that said anything more than 6 hours a day is sitting is not good for the body. And that's total the whole day. So it means your time at night on the couch and everything. And so what happens though, sitting inherently is not bad. We should be able to rest and relax and enjoy some downtime. But it's just sitting for too long is when our body starts adapting to the positions. So the position you put yourselves in, that's your body's going to adapt to. And so when we stay seated for long times, and then we have our phones, so we're sitting forward like this, we're hunched at computers, and so our posture and our body adapts to those positions, and we start getting tighter, and we start having compensations. Our hips are tight, which could cause our pelvis to tip forward, which then causes us to think we have tight hamstrings when in fact you might have tight hip flexors. So there's a lot of compensations that go on. And so what I tell people is you should always be trying to set that alarm, get up off the desk, and just get out of the chair, walk around. If you have access to a standing desk, that's where I'm at right now. These are nice just to you don't have to stand all day. That's actually can be quite not great for you as well. You want to be alternating stuff like that. But yeah, I think that it's we need to just spend less time, try and get out of the chairs and keep it under that 6 hours if it's possible. It's definitely hard because when I tell a lot of my clients that, they say, well, 6 hours, that's just work, right? And I'm like, no, that's the whole day. So
Absolutely. Let's understand it this way. A lot of people, young people, older people, they think they spend a lot of time at work from home, in office, and think they are working. Today they will earn money. Tomorrow they will have a good life. They will have a better protection in terms of a future life. Is that thinking correct? Or there is a huge trade-off here in terms of health that you talk about? What does this whole thing impact? How does it all impact the physical health part of it that you want people to understand?
Yeah, so I think a lot of times people, I've seen a lot of different things happen in my life with people. I've had people I know who are close to me back when I used to work in IT who would say, because I used to exercise back then and try to take care of myself. And I would say to people, I'd be like, oh, Phil, you should really start taking care of yourself. And they'd be like, oh, I'll take care of myself when I retire. I just got 3 years left. And then unfortunately, in this case, that person retired and died shortly after. And so I think that we can't always just look at health as something that we'll do later. We have to look at it from a perspective that it has to be a priority in our lives now. And I realize even myself being a busy entrepreneur, there's days like I start at 4:30 a.m. and I love what I do. So I shut down at 8:30 p.m. and I do squeeze a workout in during the day. But there's days where it's just so busy that that I might not get the full workout. But I always say that you should never put up a zero. There should always be something, whether it's exercise snacks throughout the day where you just do 2 minutes of exercise. Those add up. They all add up. And if you're doing the right things, the right exercise snacks for, like, say, some posture work, if you're sitting at a desk, or just to get your heart rate up a little bit, they all add up through the day. And so I think that for everyone out there, working their careers, working hard, if you're a driven entrepreneur, you may think that I'm not going to work out because if I can't get an hour in, it's not going to be effective for me. But in fact, anything just moves the bar. Never put up a zero. Exercise snacks, 2-minute breaks throughout the day, a 10-minute workout, doing the right things. I put a lot of those in my program for a lot of my busy clients. But you should always think of it in terms of we should always be doing something. Just try to get a win in the health bucket every day.
Absolutely, Stephan. You talk about, what people, their approach to fitness is wrong in certain ways, especially after 40. And, building strength on top of dysfunction often leads to plateaus or setback. What is it that a lot of people could be doing wrong without even knowing about it?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot there. And I find so much in my career. So, I mean, there's the general stuff that people think of, which is just bad form. So, like, for example, one thing that I'm always on a mission to fix is push-ups when people flare their elbows out, because that's actually not great for your shoulders. So when your elbows flare out more than 45 degrees from your side and you come up here, your actually shoulder kind of moves into not a great position to generate force from. And then you can generate force because you can internally rotate your shoulder and create force off that, but it's not good for your shoulders. So there's basic stuff like that, like proper technique for exercises. But then it also comes down to, it always comes back to, when we talk about building strength on top of dysfunction, it's if you have these movement inefficiencies, if you're sitting all day, if your shoulders are tight, if your hips are tight, your body's going to compensate to get things done. So if, let's say, for example, that I don't have a good overhead shape mechanic in my body, and when I raise my arm up ahead, I can only get to, like, say, here. I mean, most people are going to be able to get overhead, but what they do is they compensate in their spine. And it's these compensations over time that start adding up to things like, oh, my shoulder's hurting me. I feel like I'm getting old. They blame age, but it's these little compensations. And you find these in movement screens. And when you find these compensations, you start working on them. You improve your range of motion. Those compensations, those little things that happen over time start disappearing. And then you can build strength from a nice foundation rather than building strength on top of dysfunction. And I like to use the analogy of a house. You wouldn't want to build a house on a bad foundation because, just be nothing but problems there. And that's the same thing with our body. So that's why those snapshots in time, those movement screens, and making sure you have good movement control and ability in your body matter a lot. So that way you don't have these breakdowns as often when you exercise.
Absolutely. Now let's come to the movement part, Stephan. When you talk about movement, almost everyone will say, Stephan, I move all the time. I move inside the house. I move outside that house. And so in your sense, I should be fit and hale and hearty because I do a lot of movement. Or is there way of thinking right? Or your movement assessment and all these things are a bit different?
So you're right. It is a bit different. But I will say that movement and getting your steps in, you're right. That's awesome for our body. We need to be moving. We need to be getting our steps in and just walking, gardening, whatever it may be. If you want a bonus for walking, if you get a rucksack and put a backpack on your back, get a little bone density. But yeah, so I think when it comes to movement in general, great, excellent. But when you think of movement from a movement screen perspective, it takes it deeper. It's like strength through range of motion. It's making sure that you have control in different ranges of motion. It's your balance. It's how can you stand on one leg. It's movement longevity tests, like get up tests from the ground without using your hands. There's a lot that goes into small muscles that fire and making sure the body's working as a system well. And that's where these screens come in to kind of help open your eyes from basic movement, which is important, to what is really going on here and where are you missing range of motion? Are you missing range of motion in your shoulders, hips, where? And if I put you in different positions and assess you, and a lot of people do movement screens. There's a lot of people out there that do different movement screens. They're just important to find these areas where you're missing range of motion, and then you can work on building that, and then everything's going to work better. So when you do move, you have less chance of injury. Like, for example, one thing I like to say is if you were walking, and not everyone has ice in their countries, depending where you're at and stuff like that. But if you have to step over like a large puddle, oops, banged my desk there. If you have to step over a large puddle, but your body's not used to taking that long step, or if you have to, all of a sudden you have to run and your body's not ready for that because you don't train it, you haven't been in that position with that hip extension, you can pull a muscle. And so I think that a lot of times we train movements to help. We never know what we're going to ask our body to do. And of course, you may never say, I'm not going to broad jump or something like that, at 70 years old. But what if you have to? What if you slip, or what if you have to jump? And that's what I think those movement capacities come in, and making sure you have good range in motion and small muscles firing. Because then when these situations come up that you're asked to do something outside of your comfort zone, your body's ready for it and better ready for it.
Right, Stephan. So when do you come into the picture? When does TA4 Fitness come into the picture? How do you help? What are people coming to you for?
Yes. So I think a lot of people come to me because traditional fitness stops working. And it's traditional fitness, I say, is training for the mirror. It's looking at the body and body parts, like I'm going to work this bicep, things like that. And what happens is, after a while, because people have lived life, they've been sitting for work, they have old injuries, they have surgeries, so their body has these compensations, and they try to exercise, but they end up injured, or they don't feel good, and they're not seeing results. And so what happens is, when they come to me, I ask them, I say things differently. I say, what do you want to do in life? I do ask like what their body like what they want to weigh, things like that. That's important for sure. But then I ask them what they want to do in life. And then from there, I say, okay, well, we have your goals. We have what you want to do in life. And even their visual goals, if they say, I want to tone up, stuff like that, that's healthy and that's fine. But then I put them through the movement screen. I say, okay, now that I've seen how you move, plus your goals in life and what you want to do with your body, that's when I can build them more of a thorough program that addresses all these things. Even small things like how well someone breathes is just a shock to people, because a lot of people don't realize that they're as sensitive as they are to carbon dioxide. And there's a whole bunch of, I don't want to get into too much theory here and research on breath work, but there's all these things that could just be extra pieces of the puzzle that standard fitness misses, and that the movement screen and their goals in life would catch. And then we build a program from there that's much more thorough and much more of a total picture of health and fitness. And then I meet my clients where they're at. So if someone says, I can only work out 10 minutes a day, I'm going to help you build the most efficient 10 minutes a day based on the time. So that's the time you have available off the movement screen and off your goals. And then we just keep improving and get those wins and take it a day at a time.
Absolutely. You seem to put a lot of emphasis on this thing called train for life, not just looks. Help us understand that. And not everyone will personally be able to take training from you. Perhaps, anything that you would want to tell them in a nutshell you remember about movement, so that they have the right movement in their lives wherever they are, by listening to you on this, podcast?
Yes. Yeah. So I would say, so when you think about the time you're going to spend exercising, ask yourself, what are you exercising for? Let's say, for example, that you want to play pickleball, or you want to play golf, or you want to just play with your grandkids. So when you start thinking of it that way, you start thinking of movements and not body parts. So for example, some of my clients just literally want to just move well and travel well and play with their grandkids. And so if you think of some of the things you do when you play with kids, you might be on the floor. You might be sitting on the floor, which is great for the hips. Everyone should be trying to sit on the floor and get up from the floor. Countries that spend more time sitting on the floor have a lot less falls and injury risk. So think of that. Think of what you did when you were a kid in some ways, like crawling. Like bear crawls are an awesome exercise. And then think of other things like, how did you challenge yourself when you were a kid, like standing on one leg? Can you do it? Everyone knows we need to brush our teeth for 2 minutes a day. So why not stand on one leg while you're doing it, and then brush for 1 minute, then brush for the other minute? So you think of things in terms of movement and fun, but then also like when we take back, and I'll bring back the sports here. Let's say you're always playing pickleball or tennis or something. If you're always swinging and doing one motion one way, you should think about the body in terms of balance. And then also think about, well, how am I strengthening up this rotator cuff here? And there's exercise you can do for rotator cuff work to prevent your shoulders from being injured. And then lastly, I would say that a lot of times when we train, we think of the front of our body. But in reality, especially if you're sitting a lot, you should train your posterior chain more. And there's simple exercises that you can do, like glute bridges. There's moves where you, like yoga holds, where you stand up and you hinge on over and you bring your arms out and you just hold the position, wide leg forward flexion. Things that work your posterior chain and are going to help with posture are really important. So I would say not to neglect those. And then from there, yeah, just keep your good movement going. Train to have a little fun in movement, and then you'll have a little better thorough picture. And don't get me wrong, general strength training is still important. We should still be doing our pushes, our pulls. Skeletal muscle is the tissue of longevity, but you also want to have that movement component so you can keep doing the things you love. And that's why I like to say train for life, not just looks.
Absolutely. Train for life, not just for looks. There is so much to learn about all this from you, Stephan, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more about what you do, how you do, and perhaps also be your client. What's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, they can go to meet me at my webpage, check out a little bit more about me at TA4Fitness.com. And then you can also follow me on all the socials. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the good stuff like that, TikTok, YouTube page, TA4 Fitness. They can look me up and find me there. And I love what I do, and I love helping people. So please reach out, say hello, and I'd love to chat with you and give you some help.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.